Okie doke. Okay, this is a long time coming. Well, okay, this one's not so much of a long time coming. But the one I'm going to do next was a long time coming. But it's Jack's birthday today, so I wanted to give a little special attention because of the day. There's more above my head. I don't care about the angle, I guess. But I wanted to respond to a question from Artie, some really interesting questions, which I think the answers hopefully will get to the heart of why I'm doing this initiative, why I'm talking about the new vision in the first place. So I'm going to read his question so I don't get it wrong, or it's partially question, partially statement, a couple questions in there. But he said, I was wondering your thoughts and or any resource reading material you could lead me to for the following question. Why do you think Lucian Carr seemingly rejected the beat philosophy and perhaps even the new vision that he so powerfully influenced in his youth? Amazing question. So, my answer is this, and I'll continue. He's got a little bit more, but sort of the punchline of this initiative, the reason that I picked it up in the first place, or at least felt like what I had learned, or what, I should say this, okay? I'm not claiming to be an authority on the subject, but I am owning the intuition that I have around what the new vision actually was, based on my explorations, the teachings of Carlos Castaneda, etc. So I don't mind planting that flag and representing it, in as much as nobody else is really shedding light on it in that way that I've ever seen. But my perspective is this. Well, the crux of all of this is to provide an alternative take to the idea that says that, Jack and Allen and Burroughs and Corso, etc., we're kind of doing the ultimate thing. They were artists, they changed history, they became popular, they made somewhat of a living, and they were these cultural juggernauts, their legend is well known. But what I'm questioning in my studies of the new vision and the angle that I'm presenting is that the ultimate is not necessarily to become the well-known artist. In fact, if I had to put it as succinctly as I could, the crux of the new vision is that the best thing you can do is be the art. You literally, and I get into, and there's a couple of little short videos that I put on my New Vision Facebook group that discuss this too. They're very brief. I'll try to be like a little more explicit now. But when you talk about the transfer, about the cultivation, the redeployment of energy in the shamanic traditions as described by Carlos Castaneda, what you start to see is that to record something, whether it's in paint, whether it's in poetry, whether it's in prose, whether it's in sculpture, whether it's in film, whatever it happens to be, there's a dichotomy created through that you're the describer. Lucian Carr, Neil Cassidy were the embodiments that Kerouac, Ginsberg had to sort of strain to describe, and they both did it in a very exquisite way, whether it was these particular characters or whether it was other people that they worked into their narratives. But it was one level removed from being the art. And that was the thing that made these people compelling. So in that sense, and I would put this forward too, even in, so part one of my centennial birthday lecture, I get into a little bit of what Ginsberg described in his book, and here I go again, the Book of Martyrdom and Artifice. He got into Lucian's head and in his descriptions of their conversations, and Lucian was grappling with this. Should I try life, or should I try the world of art? He was very dissatisfied with the art world. He tried life. This is a whole sub-tangent, but very, very interestingly, I feel, is his parallels between Lucian's life and the life of Arthur Rimbaud, who also, well, Arthur Rimbaud was a poet for however long, maybe 15 years, something like that, and then gave up the world of art in order to become a career guy. Lucian did the same thing. But when you embody and are the art, you can literally do anything and it becomes art. And it isn't because you are describing something. It isn't because you're a creator. You are a creation. And your life itself, and this is the thing that is almost universal about Lucian and Neil, is that you felt like you were in the presence of the divine when you were with them. And you were watching their lives play out because of this incredible accumulation of energy in the present moment. In Carlos Castaneda's world, they would have been called luminous beings. And so the techniques of not doing and other things that I'm going to go into help to do that. So to answer the question, he didn't turn his back on the new vision because he was the living embodiment of the new vision. Even though he became a career man, retired with a pension after something like 47 years, and did what seemed to be very ordinary things. But it was also apparent to those who worked with him that they were dealing with someone that was very special. And he was a rascal. And he wasn't conforming because he brought his presence and all of that meant into the things that he did. Now, does that mean he was always a wholesome person? Does it mean that he was, like, for example, a good dad? Does it mean that he had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed in his life? That he was Ward Cleaver? No, he wasn't. Doesn't mean that he, but again, you go back to this dichotomy in the new vision between evading conventional morality and naked expression. There is that tension. And he wasn't trying to conform, and he wasn't even trying to conform to what most people would say constitutes, necessarily a good dad. That's a complicated thing, and that's not something that I touch on too much. Some things have been said. There's an article by Caleb Carr, his son, that certainly wasn't a glowing review of Lucian's fatherhood, but he was left at a he was kind of left in a hole in that regard by the loss of his own father at a young age, who left him, and he was just a little kid. And that's where the part of the complication came, where David Cameron saw an opportunity, sort of glommed on, or at least kind of gained the trust of his mother, and then proceeded to, for his own selfish purposes, start to stalk and take Lucian away on trips and do all this other skeevy stuff. So he turned his back on art, but he didn't turn his back on the new vision. Now he turned his back on teaching the new vision and really fleshing it out for people like they had intended to do. But my argument is that he was that new vision. He was the living embodiment of art. He goes on, Artie goes on, clearly his time in prison altered him. That's a fact, yeah. No question about it. But even that didn't really sidetrack him too much. It sidetracked him from picking up with his friends initially when he got out of the reformatory. But he more or less, and at least in my feeling, is that he kind of went on as normal, and that was a bit of it was a 2-year plus hiccup. This is very interesting. He said, I even read recently that he discouraged his children from reading beat literature. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. I would love to see a source on that. I think that that is quite possible. Did he ever say anything directly about this? Aside from, he didn't like to be showcased in their writings. I know that when Howl came out, there was a dedication that included him, and he asked that it be removed from later editions, which it was. I also saw a box of, what was it, like the first 20 or 30 City Lights pocketbook series, and there was an original there that had Lucian still in it, and the complete box set of these was, God, I want to say it was like $19,000 or something. And I saw one on sale, I believe on eBay for, I think $6,000, that still had Lucian's name in the front. That's a good thing to look into. So I knew that, and I need to go into the letters of that period and see what Jack and Lucian discussed in the run-up to the publication of Vanity of Douloise, because they were still very much in contact. I don't know if his sort of being irked by being mentioned at that point by about 67 or 68, when that would have been written, was as fresh and sharp as it had been before. But I did have the impression that Jack kind of knew he was going against Lucian's will in retelling the story of David Cameron in that period at Columbia. So yeah, a couple of good things to look into there, especially with, his disfavor perhaps with his own sons reading the beat literature. Maybe he was shy about them learning about Camera's death and how that came about. I don't know, but I'll keep that in mind as I continue to do research and stuff. But anyway, thank you, Artie, and hope this works for you as an answer. Let me know if this brings to mind any follow-up questions. Thanks a lot.